The beautiful game creates legends and unites billions, but behind the glory lies a heartbreaking reality of tragic deaths. These stories remind us that behind every jersey is a human being with dreams, family, and the fragile thread of mortality. Today, we journey through football's most devastating moments. If you're ready to face football's heartbreaking truth, hit the like button. The Munich air disaster, when youth and promise crashed in the snow. It was supposed to be just another flight home. February 6, 1958, Manchester United's charismatic Busby Babes, the most exciting young team in European football, were returning from a successful European Cup match against Red Star Belgrade. The mood was buoyant. These young men, with an average age of just 22, had the football world at their feet. They represented the future, a symbol of post-war hope and regeneration. But destiny had other plans. The aircraft, a British European Airways airspeed ambassador, stopped in Munich to refuel. Snow was falling heavily, creating dangerous conditions. After 2 aborted takeoff attempts, the young players grew anxious. Some reportedly made dark jokes about their mortality. On the 3rd attempt, the plane failed to gain adequate lift, crashing through a fence and into a nearby house. The immediate aftermath was chaos and horror. 23 of the 44 passengers died instantly or shortly after the crash. Among them were 8 of football's brightest young stars. Roger Byrne, at 28, he was already England's captain and considered one of the world's best fullbacks. He left behind a pregnant wife. Tommy Taylor, a £65,000 signing, a British record at the time. He had scored 16 goals in 19 England appearances. His potential was limitless. Duncan Edwards, just 21 years old, many who saw him play insist he was England's greatest ever talent. He fought for his life for 15 days after the crash, his strong physique initially helping him survive injuries that would have killed others instantly. The impact on manager Matt Busby was particularly devastating. He spent 2 months in hospital, given the last rites twice. When he finally recovered, he faced the unimaginable task of rebuilding not just a football team, but a family. The grief extended beyond Manchester. This was a tragedy felt across the football world. What makes the Munich disaster especially poignant is the "what might have been" factor. This team wasn't just successful. They played with a youthful exuberance and flair that captured imaginations. They were on the verge of dominating European football. Their loss represents one of sport's great alternative histories, a timeline of glory that never was. The legacy, however, is one of incredible resilience. Busby, driven by the memory of his lost sons, rebuilt Manchester United, eventually winning the European Cup 10 years later with survivors Bobby Charlton and Bill Foulkes in the team. That 1968 victory wasn't just a trophy, it was a promise kept to the boys who never came home from Munich. The Munich disaster remains one of football's most heartbreaking chapters. If this story of lost potential and resilience moved you, hit that like button. Andrés Escobar, the 12-day tragedy of an innocent man. Sometimes the line between football and life becomes terrifyingly thin. For Andrés Escobar, a gentle, educated defender known as the Gentleman of Football, that line vanished in the most brutal way imaginable. His story begins with a simple football mistake and ends with a murder that exposed the dark underworld festering within the beautiful game. The context is crucial. Colombia entered the 1994 World Cup, not just as participants, but as many people's favorites to win the entire tournament. Their flowing, attacking football had captivated the world during qualifiers, but this success came with a deadly price: the infiltration of drug cartels into Colombian football. Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel, no relation to Andrés, and other criminal organizations had poured millions into the sport, using it for money laundering and massive gambling operations. When Andrés Escobar accidentally deflected a cross into his own net against the United States, leading to Colombia's shock elimination, he didn't just make a sporting error. In the eyes of the cartels who had bet millions on Colombia's success, he committed an unforgivable sin. 12 days later, on July 2nd, 1994, Escobar was out with friends in a Medellin nightclub. Around 3 a.m., he got into an argument with 3 men who began taunting him about his own goal. The situation escalated outside the club, where Escobar was shot 6 times. Witnesses reported the gunmen shouting "goal" with each shot. shot. He was just 27 years old. The murder sent shockwaves through world football. Here was an intelligent, university-educated man from a respectable family, a player known for his fair play and sportsmanship, killed for a simple mistake in a game. The tragedy exposed how Colombian football had become entangled with the country's violent drug wars. The aftermath saw nationwide mourning. 120,000 people attended his funeral. His family established the Andrés Escobar Foundation to promote sports and education as alternatives to violence. The convicted killer, Humberto Muñoz Castro, was sentenced to 43 years, later reduced to 26 for good behavior, but many believe he was simply a hitman following orders from powerful gambling interests. Escobar's legacy is complex. His death forced Colombia to confront the criminal elements in its football culture. It led to improved security for players and stricter regulations. But the tragedy remains a stark reminder that in some parts of the world, football isn't just a game. It's a matter of life and death. Andrés Escobar's murder showed the world football's darkest underbelly. Share this video to honor his memory and stand against violence in sports. The Zambia air disaster, a nation's wings clipped. April 27, 1993. A nation's football dreams died in a fiery crash off the coast of Gabon. The Zambia national team, affectionately nicknamed the KK-11, was traveling to Senegal for a World Cup qualifier when their military plane crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. All 30 people on board perished, including 18 players, the coach, and support staff. To understand the magnitude of this loss, you need to appreciate how good this Zambian team was. They were arguably Africa's most exciting team, having thrilled audiences at the 1988 Seoul Olympics with their attacking flair. Players like goalkeeper Efford Chabala, considered one of Africa's best, captain Eston Mulenga, and striker Kelvin Mutale were becoming continental superstars. This was a golden generation that seemed destined to put Zambian football on the world map. The flight was supposed to be routine. The team was using a Zambian Air Force Buffalo aircraft, stopping in Gabon to refuel before continuing to Senegal. Witnesses reported seeing flames coming from one of the engines shortly after takeoff from Libreville. The plane crashed into the ocean about 500 meters offshore. The cause was officially listed as pilot error, though mechanical failure was never completely ruled out. The impact on this southern African nation of just 8 million people was devastating. Zambia declared national mourning. Thousands attended memorial services. The team wasn't just a group of footballers, they were national heroes, symbols of hope in a country facing economic challenges. What happened next is one of football's most remarkable stories of resilience. Against all odds, Zambia rebuilt its national team from scratch. Surviving star Kalusha Bwalya, who missed the flight because he was traveling separately from Europe, became the team's heart and soul. For nearly 2 decades, Zambian football carried the memory of the lost generation. Then, in 2012, came the impossible. Zambia reached the Africa Cup of Nations final against the mighty Ivory Coast. The venue? Libreville, Gabon, the very city where their predecessors had died. In one of football's most emotionally charged matches, Zambia won 8-7 on penalties. As captain Christopher Katongo lifted the trophy, players and fans alike felt the presence of the 1993 team watching over them. It was more than a victory. It was cosmic justice, a nation healing through sport. Subscribe for more powerful stories of football's human side. Marc-Vivien Foé, The Collapse That Revolutionized Football Safety. Sometimes a single moment changes everything. For world football, that moment came in the 72nd minute of a Confederations Cup semifinal on June 26, 2003. Cameroon midfielder Marc-Vivien Foé, a powerful, seemingly indestructible athlete, suddenly collapsed in the center circle. There was no contact, no foul, no obvious cause, just a healthy 28-year-old man's body shutting down in front of a global television audience. The medical response was immediate and extensive. Team doctors rushed onto the pitch, performing CPR for 45 minutes as millions watched in horror. Foé was eventually carried off on a stretcher and transported to a Lion hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The autopsy revealed the silent killer, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a genetic condition that causes the heart muscle to thicken, often with no prior symptoms. Foey's tragedy was particularly heartbreaking because of the context. He was in the prime of his career, having just helped Lyon win the French League. He was a key player for Cameroon, a nation that adored him. Most poignantly, he left behind a wife and 3 young children who would grow up without their father. But from this personal tragedy emerged a revolution in football safety. Foey's death forced the football world to confront uncomfortable questions. How could a supremely fit professional athlete have an undetected heart condition? Were medical screenings adequate? Was the emergency response sufficient? The changes came rapidly. Mandatory cardiac screening became standard for professional players worldwide. Emergency action plans were developed for all major stadiums. Defibrillators became mandatory equipment at football grounds. Medical timeouts were introduced for serious incidents. Increased research into athlete heart health received funding. Every time we see a player receive immediate medical attention today, every time a life is saved because of proper screening, we're witnessing Foey's legacy. His death, while tragic, has undoubtedly saved countless other lives. It's a painful reminder that progress in safety standards often comes at the highest possible price. Let us know in the comments if you've witnessed improved safety measures at your local stadium or sports facility. The Hillsborough disaster. 96 voices, 27 years of fighting for truth. April 15th, 1989. What should have been a celebration of football became one of Britain's worst sporting disasters and a decades-long fight for justice that would expose institutional corruption and media malpractice. The Hillsborough disaster isn't just a story about football. It's a story about truth, power, and the relentless pursuit of justice by ordinary families. The facts are harrowing. During the FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest, police opened an exit gate to relieve congestion outside the stadium. This led to a fatal crush in the Leppings Lane end, where Liverpool fans were housed. The stadium design was fundamentally unsafe, with lethal fencing penning fans in and narrow tunnels creating deadly bottlenecks. As the crush intensified, the police response was catastrophically inadequate. Instead of recognizing a medical emergency, they treated it as a public order incident. Ambulances were prevented from entering the area. Fans who tried to help were viewed as troublemakers. The result? 96 people died, and hundreds more were injured, many suffering life-altering trauma. But the initial tragedy was compounded by what followed. The police, supported by certain politicians and media outlets, launched a coordinated campaign to blame the victims. The Sun newspaper infamously ran a front-page story headlined, "The Truth," containing fabricated stories about Liverpool fans stealing from the dead and urinating on police officers. For 27 years, the victims' families fought an unequal battle against powerful institutions. They faced police obstruction, political indifference, and media ridicule, but they never gave up. Their campaign, marked by incredible dignity and determination, eventually forced a new inquest in 2016. The verdict was historic. The 96 were unlawfully killed, and the fans were entirely innocent. The cover-up was exposed, apologies were issued, and finally, some measure of justice was achieved. Hillsborough changed English football forever. It led to the Taylor Report and all Cedar stadiums, the removal of perimeter fencing, revolutionized policing of football matches, improved emergency response protocols, a cultural shift in how football fans are perceived and treated. But beyond the practical changes, Hillsborough stands as a permanent testament to the power of ordinary people to challenge injustice, no matter how powerful the opposition. Share this story to ensure we never forget the 96 and the importance of always seeking the truth, no matter how long it takes. Christian Eriksen, the miracle that showed how far we've come. June 12, 2021, the moment modern football faced its greatest fear and emerged with its greatest miracle. Denmark's Christian Eriksen, one of Europe's most creative midfielders, collapsed during a Euro 2020 match against Finland. For 13 agonizing minutes, the world held its breath as medical teams fought to save his life on the pitch. What made this moment different from previous tragedies was the response. This wasn't 2003, when doctors stood helpless around Marc-Vivien Foé. This was the culmination of nearly 2 decades of medical advancement and safety protocols developed in response to previous tragedies. The chain of survival worked perfectly. Teammates immediately recognized the seriousness and summoned help. Medical staff responded within seconds. CPR began immediately. A defibrillator was used promptly. The stadium had emergency protocols in place. Perhaps most movingly, Eriksson's teammates formed a protective circle around him, shielding their friend from the intrusive gaze of cameras. It was a spontaneous act of humanity that spoke volumes about the bonds between players. The miracle happened. Eriksson's heart was restarted and he survived, but his career seemed over. With an implanted defibrillator, Italian regulations prevented him from playing in Serie A. Inter Milan had to release him, and at 29, it appeared his top-level career was finished. Then came the second miracle. After months of rehabilitation, Eriksson returned to Premier League football with Brentford, then signed for Manchester United. His comeback for Denmark, scoring with his first touch, provided one of football's most emotional moments. Eriksson's story represents the incredible progress in sports medicine. It shows how learning from past tragedies can save lives, but it also demonstrates the incredible resilience of the human spirit, the determination to return to what you love, no matter the obstacles. Hit the bell icon for more inspiring stories of athletes overcoming impossible odds. From Munich to Medellin, from collapsed hearts to crushed stands, these tragedies remind us of football's capacity for heartbreak. But each story forced football to learn and improve. Their legacy lives in every safe stadium, every screened player, and every fan who returns home safely.